In every city, there are stories that never made the papers. Not because they weren't important, but because they were inconvenient. They live in forgotten files, in half-finished investigations, in questions no one wanted answered. This isn't where justice always wins. This is where the echoes remain. This is Reverberating Noir. They tell you history is written by the winners. That's a comforting lie. A story for the daylight. What about the history written in the split second before a gun goes off? The history held in the mind of a man with a pistol in a crowded room. That history never gets written at all.
It's erased. By the shot, by the screaming, by the chaos that follows. We're left only with the echo.
Welcome to Reverberating Noir. I'm Adam Jones.
And I'm Nina Jovovich.
Our story tonight isn't about a body found in a ditch. It's about a country finding its soul and shooting it dead on the floor of its own parliament. The year is 1862. The place is Bucharest. And the man on the floor, dying in a pool of his own blood, is the first paid architect of a nation, Barbu Catargiu, the first Prime Minister of the United Principalities of Moldavia and Wallachia. What we're really examining tonight is the moment a dream gets a bullet in its back.
Let's ground this. Fast. The Danubian Principalities, two vassal states of the Ottoman Empire, were stuck between empires. Russia wanted them, Austria wanted them, the Ottoman Sultan claimed them. After the Crimean War, the Treaty of Paris in 1856 said, "No more sole masters." The great powers would guarantee them. This created a window, a fragile, foreign-backed chance to merge, to become something new, Romania.
And into that window stepped Barbu Catargiu, noble birth, Paris-educated, a mind like a steel trap. He wasn't a man of the people, he was a man of the system. He believed in order, in hierarchy, in slow, deliberate construction. To him, a nation was a grand legal edifice. You drafted the constitution, you unified the ministries, you secured diplomatic recognition, and then, and only then, you breathed the air of sovereignty. He was appointed the first Prime Minister in January of 1862. His job was to hold the centre, to steady the ship, to navigate between the Ottoman Porte's demands, Russian intrigue, and the fury of his own parliament.
Which brings us to the other side of the room, the opposition, led by men like Ion Bratianu and C.A. Rossetti. They were called the Reds, not communists. Radical nationalists and liberals, they saw Catargiu's caution as treason. His deference to the Ottoman Sultan as slavery. They wanted a full-throated, independent, reformed Romania yesterday. They wanted to burn the old boyar privileges to the ground. Parliament wasn't a debating chamber. It was a gladiatorial pit. And Catargiu walked in every day wearing a target.
He gave as good as he got. His speeches were cold, surgical, devastating. He'd take a fiery liberal's argument, dismantle it point by point, and leave the man humiliated in the wreckage of his own rhetoric. But he had a fatal flaw for this particular arena: contempt. He radiated a profound, unshakable belief that he was simply smarter, better educated, and more fit to lead than these emotional men. In a political culture rapidly becoming about passion and popular will, that wasn't a flaw. It was a death sentence, waiting for a trigger.
June the 20th, 1862. The session is winding down. The debate has been brutal. Catargiu has just won a procedural vote on the National Bank. He rises from the government bench. He's in that vulnerable moment, between seats. Not at the podium, just moving.
And from the public gallery or from the floor itself, a single shot. A small pistol. The bullet enters his back, travels upward, he doesn't fall, he turns. His face, a mask of pure, uncomprehending shock. They carry him out. He's placed on a sofa in an anteroom. The first Prime Minister of Romania is dying on a piece of furniture in a noisy hallway. He lingers through the night, gives last words urging forgiveness and unity. He's gone by morning, age 54.
The assassin? A young man in ordinary clothes, described as slender with a mustache. In the instant chaos, the screaming, the scrambling, the vanishing act, he just disappears. No hero tackles him, no guard sees the weapon. It is never found.
The investigation is a farce from the start. The parliamentary guards were a joke. Lax, unobservant. The crowd is a panicked, polarized mob. Witnesses give a dozen different descriptions. The authorities arrest several radicals. Question them. Release them. The case goes ice cold. Officially, unsolved. Forever.
But let's look at what we do know. The motive was screaming from the walls. In the weeks before, Catargiu had been physically attacked in the street by a mob. His life was openly threatened. The politics had become existential. For the radicals, he wasn't a political opponent. He was the living symbol of a corrupt, stagnant, semi-colonial past. Removing him wasn't just a tactical goal, it was a purification. A necessary act for the soul of the nation, in their eyes.
So you have to ask, was this a lone fanatic, or was it a conspiracy? The radical leadership, Bratianu and Rossetti, they condemned the murder instantly. Publicly. They weren't stupid. But privately? In the cafes? In the back rooms? What did they feel? Relief? Grim satisfaction? They certainly benefited. The immovable object was gone. Within 2 years, Prince Kuza, freed from Catargiu's restraining hand, would enact the massive land reform the Reds wanted. He'd centralise power, modernise the army, push an aggressive nationalist line. The very changes Catargiu died resisting became law.
Here's the pattern that makes my blood run cold. This isn't an anomaly, it's a prototype. Think about it. A deeply polarized society. A political class that uses dehumanizing existential rhetoric. A target, a prominent figure who is framed not as an opponent but as an enemy of the people itself. A security apparatus that is either unwilling or unable to provide real protection. And then, a moment of chaotic violence. Followed by an investigation that magically hits a wall. The perpetrator is never found. The conspiracy, if there was one, dies with the gunman. And the political movement most associated with the victim's rhetoric is permanently discredited, even as its policy goals are swiftly enacted by others.
So you're saying the assassination itself became the catalyst for the opposition's victory. The murder weapon was also the political tool.
Precisely. The act of violence created the moral stain that discredited the radicals' methods, but it so perfectly fulfilled their goals that it acted as a secret, unacknowledged victory. The state fails to find the killer. The killer's political side wins anyway. What message does that send to the next disgruntled radical with a pistol? That you might get away with it. That your act, even if condemned, might still change history. That the chaos you create can be harnessed by others to finish your work.
That's what gets under my skin. The missing shooter. He's not a ghost because we don't know his name. He's a ghost because his silence is so profound. He took the one secret that could have unravelled everything or proved a conspiracy to his grave. And in doing so, he created a perfect, unprosecutable crime, a political murder with no culprit, only an effect. The state's authority was assassinated that day as much as the man. It proved it could be breached from within, that its own chamber was a killing flaw. And it could do nothing about it.
Most histories stop there, with the mystery, the unsolved case. But the truly disturbing part is what happened after. The system didn't learn. It didn't harden its security. It didn't purge the rhetoric. It just moved on. The assassination became a nationalist myth for one side, a cautionary tale for the other. But the underlying condition, the politics of existential demonization, was never treated as the lethal toxin it was. It was just part of the noise.
So here we are. Over 160 years later, we tell this story in a studio, in a calm voice, with sound effects. But the essence of it, the dread of it, isn't in the past. It's in the pattern where words become weapons, where the other is erased from humanity in political discourse, where security is a performance, and where a single, anonymous act of violence can hollow out the centre of a democracy and leave us all arguing about the shape of the whole while the wind blows right through it.
The case of Barbu Catargiu is not cold. It is open. The verdict was never delivered. The convicted are not named. The sentence is still being served by every society that mistakes violent rhetoric for passionate debate. and calls its own vulnerability a price of freedom. The gunman in the gallery is gone, but the gallery remains, and it is always, always full.
If this story of a nation's birth trauma and the haunting silence of its first unsolved murder resonated with you, subscribe to Reverberating Noir. We delve into the shadows where history's echoes still tremble.
Because some crimes are never solved. They just reverberate.
The recording ends here, but the case doesn't. Somewhere, the evidence still exists. The questions still wait. If this story stayed with you, if it followed you into the silence, subscribe to Reverberating Noir. Not for us, for the stories that refuse to disappear.
Because as long as something doesn't make sense, the truth is still out there. And someone will find it.
Until next time, keep listening to the dark.